Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's a dad of eight, and of course, a debut author, the author of the book Autism, as finding hope in the chaos, none other than Mr. Paul Voss.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. I'm really excited to be here.
Welcome, Mr. Paul, on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Sure. So again, my name is Paul Voss. As you mentioned, I'm a dad of 8 kids. My youngest, who is my daughter, was diagnosed with autism just over 3 years ago, and really inspired me to write about the experience. Not only the negative aspects, but there's been a lot of positives that have come out of it. And I live in Avon, Connecticut, with my wife and kids.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Paul. Thank you. The title Autism as is disarming, blunt, yet the subtitle promise finding hope. Why was it important to lead with the raw, unfiltered honesty? And how does the permission to be frustrated actually open the door to hope?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really struggled with the title of the book. I wanted it to reflect, how I feel sometimes, actually a lot of the time. And I think parents who are in the same situation, I think they've all said at some point, like, this sucks. This is
Mm-hmm.
awful. Why me? Um, but as I was writing the book, originally it was just going to be called Autism Sucks. But as I was writing it, I was reminded of there have been a lot of good things that have come out of this autism diagnosis, both for me and my family. And it would really be unfair to just say autism sucks. So there's definitely moments where autism sucks. There's moments in your life where other things are not great or what you want them to be. But it was a good reminder of really finding what the positive aspects are. Even though there's still negatives, we still deal with negatives every day. Things that we would definitely want to change if I had control over it. I don't have control over it. So all I can really do is look for what the best of is in each situation and appreciate that.
Many parents feel immense guilt for feeling anger, grief, and exhaustion. Thus, your book acts a permission slip to acknowledge those difficult feelings. And what is the title first step after granting oneself that permission?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, as you said, granting that permission. I tried to share a lot of personal stories that I knew would resonate with others, maybe in that situation. I also wanted to give a lens to others who may not be in that situation, but have friends or family, because I think it's hard to understand if you're not living in it every day. There's friends or family that invite you to go places or want to hang out with you or, expect you to come to their kid's birthday party. And if your child is on the spectrum, in my case, my daughter has level 3 autism. It's not always easy. There's meltdowns that can occur. You really have to make sure it's the right environment that you're going to bring your kid into sometimes. So it really was about um, going to both parents who are in the situation and then maybe helping give a lens to others. I think once you kind of get past the point that, okay, this is not what I had planned, but it's my life. I need to deal with it. I think just, looking at, all the things that you do have that are good that have come out of it. Again, it might be hard when you're not getting a lot of sleep at night or, your child's biting your arm for the 8th time that day, leaving bite marks. But you really have to just kind of push through that and really, think about what are the benefits. I have a list of things that I wrote down that that were good in my life, just to remind me that there's always more good than bad. But I think once you acknowledge that, like, this is the situation It's just where I am right now. It gives you kind of that freedom to move on and kind of just appreciate what's good in your life.
Yes, indeed. Move on for sure. So, the defining sucks moment, Mr. Paul. Can you share a specific personal story from your family's journey that perfectly encapsulate a moment where autism suck, and how do you begin to navigate out that particular chaos?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I think for me, it actually happened before the formal diagnosis. There were some signs leading up to us getting my daughter tested to get a confirmation, and I had in the back of, I kind of had a feeling something was wrong. Um, having 7 other children, you kind of get used to what the normal development milestones are, especially around speaking, and she's nonverbal. So there was one day where I was on the trampoline jumping with her, and just trying to get her to talk, and I kind of thought, and I was feeling sorry for myself, but it hit me that you may never hear her say "I love you," and that like shook me, and was like, this sucks. Um, there were a whole bunch of other moments kind of after that as well, after the diagnosis, but that was really the first thing I remember about what this is going to mean. At the time, I had no idea about all the other stuff that would happen, because I did, to be honest, I didn't know a lot about autism. So I didn't know that there would be nights where I would get 2 hours of sleep, or where she'd fall asleep for 40 minutes, then want to go downstairs and play at 2 a.m. in the morning. But I think that was the initial defining moment where I was like, okay, this sucks. But yeah, there were a bunch of other probably moments after that as well, but that was really the first big one.
Mr. Paul, in the context, what does hope look like? Is it a specific outcome, a feeling of resilience, or a shift in a daily perspective? How have you had to redefine it from a society typical definition?
Yeah, I do think, it's a future outcome is one part of it, but I think you also have to really remember, for me, it's what did I start with and where am I now? Are things better or worse? And I write about this in the book, but there were things we did that we really did see progress. Again, we're not where we want to be. So it's both looking forward to the future and just remembering that things have gotten better from where they were yesterday. So it's that, seeing it happen, and then the optimism that in the future it's going to continue to get better.
To get better for sure. Mr. Paul, the book promises to find hope in the chaos, not after it. What is the practical, tangible strategy you offer for locating a moment calm or clarity right in the middle of sensory meltdown or systemic battle?
Yes, and that was why I did share a few different stories that were very personal, and to be honest, I debated sharing them. One was actually how this diagnosis impacted the rest of my family. So my oldest son, um, he was diagnosed with ADHD prior to this autism diagnosis. So before we even had our daughter, he was diagnosed with ADHD. We pursued Adderall, and as he was on it, he started talking about suicide. We immediately had a phone call with his pediatrician. We pulled him off of it. We decided we're not going to take that risk of medication in this case, because he had never talked about it before. And in research, it was a side effect. So with my daughter, with autism, one of the things we did was we went on a gluten-free, dairy-free diet as a family. It was amazing that the impact that had on my son.
When it's time to scale your business, it's time for Shopify. Get everything you need to grow the way you want, like all the way. Stack more sales with the best converting checkout on the planet. Track your cha-chings from every channel, right in one spot. And turn real-time reporting into big-time opportunities. Take your business to a whole new level. Switch to Shopify. Start your free trial today.
I would have never pursued that had it not been for my daughter. And he was on a IEP plan at school. He came off of that, no longer gets any accommodations, and he's an honor roll student. So that was just kind of one example of, okay, this situation, wasn't ideal. It sucked getting a diagnosis of autism. But then, as I look at through the lens of, okay, what has that meant as a whole for my family? That was really encouraging to me. And I hope others can find encouraging aspects of things they've done to help their child, where maybe it's benefited other areas of their life.
The partner dynamic, Mr. Paul, how did writing this book or the journey with it affect your relationship with your co-parent? What do you learn about communication and support when both of you are at your breaking point?
It's a great point. Honesty is the most important. Being able to vent to each other is really, really critical. You just need somebody that you can, say this is awful and no judgment, or really speak your mind. This book was really hard for me to write because I started it about 2 years ago, and there were just parts of the story that weren't done yet that I just felt I wasn't ready to finish writing. And then it got to a point where I kind of had everything I needed to write it, and it's a big time investment to write the book. So I really tried to manage my schedule around my family schedule. So it meant if I'm traveling for work, I'm going to make sure I get as much writing time in while I'm traveling, waking up before everybody else does, so I could really just spend time focused on the book. It was really important for me to not take time away from the family and not make it be another thing on top of everything else we have going on, because of the book I was writing.
How has your journey with autism shaped the experience of neurotypical siblings in your family? And what advice do you have for parents trying to balance wildly different needs under one roof?
Yeah, it's a really hard question, because with other kids there is the dynamic that, unfortunately, if you have a child on the spectrum, they're going to need more attention, right? Like that's just something you have to kind of accept. I think you have to be open with your kids and really make sure they understand why. We try to find moments to spend one-on-one time with our other kids. But what I've seen as a result of this, though, that my kids have become way more understanding as people, and I think it's helped them become better people, more understanding and more caring as a result of this. They are super protective of their sister. They love to spend time with her. She kind of lights up the room, I would say, in our family. But it is hard, and there's I will tell you, there's guilt that both me and my wife have that we're not spending enough time with our other kids or giving them everything they need. But you kind of have to own it as a parent, and then figure out small ways to spend time with them, or get more involved with something they're interested in. And sometimes maybe it's bringing my youngest daughter along, with wherever I'm going, just so she's there, and I can keep an eye on her, but I can also spend time with the other child.
The grief and the grit, Mr. Paul. There's often talk of mourning the typical parenting journey. How do you hold space for that every real grief while simultaneously learning to see and celebrate the unique and unexpected gift your child brings?
Yeah. With the grief, yeah, I've really tried to remember that there's been grief in the past, there's going to be grief in the future, and it's not ignore it. It's kind of accept that this is where I am. This is not great, but I just try to always remember all of the good things. The joys of parenting. There's one time, my youngest, she was climbing on a table, she fell off and she split her lip open. We had to take her to the emergency room. It's an awful story, but it was while my wife was preparing dinner on a Sunday, and me and her both took our youngest to the emergency room to get stitches. We told our kids, hey, we've got to go. It's an emergency. We need you to finish dinner and just kind of make sure things are cleaned up. Long story short, when we got home, they had eaten dinner, they had cleaned the whole kitchen, and they had gotten ready for bed. So like, it was awful. You think about the grief part. She got hurt, she cut her lip open. But when I look back on that, it's a positive story because it was so cool to come home and just see that the kids kind of took care of everything. It was a good reminder that our kids are listening to us. They don't ignore us all the time. While I yell at them to clean their room or pick up, when something really does need to get done, it gets done. So I think it really is just, acknowledge that bad things have happened before, they're going to happen again, and really just try to look for, what the good part will come out of it, and knowing that you'll get through it, the bad part.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. The tribe finder, Mr. Paul. Isolation is a huge part of why it sucks. What is your best advice for a parent feeling utterly alone to find the community, their tribe that truly gets it?
Yeah, really good question. I think social media is both good and bad, but I will tell you that I think for parents, especially parents of kids with autism, social media is such a great resource. Go onto Facebook, go onto Instagram, find parent groups. Look for parents if your child goes to school. Look for other parents who may have kids that have autism, and talk to them. Through therapy. It's a great place to meet other parents. In the waiting room. While you're waiting for the therapist or when you're leaving. I think there's a lot of small moments like that where you can make connections with other parents, and I think what's been encouraging to both me and my wife is, people want to help you and they want to share not only what's worked, but what hasn't worked. And so people, I've just noticed they're very open to talk about, their journey as well, navigating autism.
Laughter as a medicine, Mr. Paul. Where does the humor fit in your philosophy? Can you share an example of a moment that was incredibly difficult, the moment, but you can now look back as on the laugh about?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer, but I try to incorporate laughter. You can't take things too serious, because if you do, life will just be a lot harder than it needs to be. But my family, we joke around a lot. We tease each other at the dinner table. With my youngest, there's a lot of different things that I could think about here. I'm trying to think of a specific moment where maybe something was not good in the moment, but laughing back on it. She'll do funny things at our dinner table that I think before we would have not really laughed, like the spinning, because that was a thing that she did a lot, like spinning, jumping up and down, there's certain things that she was doing because of her autism diagnosis. We can kind of laugh now as a family together with her, especially if she's laughing. We just kind of let that laughter that she has, be contagious in our household and carry through, versus, being upset that she's not talking or that she's stimming. We just kind of let if she's happy, let that fill the household, and we're all happy and laughing along with her.
Mm-hmm. So, Mr. Paul, if the journey is chaotic, did writing the book help you see any kind of map or predictable phrases that parents can recognize so they know they are not lost, just in a tough zone?
It did. Sitting down and kind of writing down out, like, there, every case of autism is different, but there are things that are similar. So, you know, the lack of sleep, I hear that from a lot of parents, especially around that 2 to 3 age mark. And I'll say it's like they're living the same life I was. 2 hours of sleep, up for a long time. 2 hours of sleep, up for a long time. And that was why I really wrote about some of the things where we saw specific benefits that helped our daughter. But I wanted to kind of build that map out. I would say the other thing is, like, as a person and a parent, there are things that, as I was writing the book, I realized that I benefited from and my family did. So, one was, I really feel like going through this, you become a better person and a parent. I also think you'll develop a greater appreciation for the little things in life. The third was you get an understanding of love that you never had before. I mentioned before, I wanted to hear my daughter say "I love you," and I was scared I would never hear that. Well, as I was writing the book, and the first time I thought I finished the book, she had told me "I love you," and so I had to go back and update the book again. But what was funny about it was I wanted to hear that for so long, "I love you." What I realized, like, it didn't mean anything hearing it from her. And the reason it didn't is because she's had to show me she loves me for the last 3 years. And to be honest, like, there was nothing better. Like, hearing those 3 words, like, will never come close to the way she showed me she's loved me over the 3 years. And then the other thing was improving the overall health of our family. Like, our family health improved because as we looked for solutions to help her, it benefited the whole family. So, I think that's kind of at least a map for the parents of something that, they can kind of see themselves grow into, especially if they're early in the journey.
Yes, definitely. That's priceless, Mr. Paul. Saying I love you is something else, and showing it too. Your capacity to find hope depends on your own reserves. What are your non negotiable or practical act of self-care or self-care that you learn you must prioritize even when it feels impossible?
Great question. I would say, sleep is one that is really critical. A lot of the other things that I've implemented have really come from learning about my daughter and learning what can help her. I would say if you have the ability to do it, using a sauna, self-care and help, like, there's nothing better for me to do consistently is carving out 30 minutes a day to do a sauna. And then the other thing is a concept called grounding or earthing. In the book, I talk about how we got her a grounding mat to sleep on, which is just this concept of there's energy in the earth. The first night she slept on it, she slept 6 hours. So, I consistently try to ground as well. And then really just, eating healthy has been a key thing for me. There's times where, I might be traveling and I don't always eat, what I tend to eat when I'm at home. And I just don't feel like myself. I feel, worse. So those are kind of the key things that I really put, first and foremost. And last, I would say just walking. There's nothing better than just going for a walk outside. It's really important. It helps clear your head. And, even I love going for walks with my daughter. I love going for walks with my family. It's just a great exercise. You don't have to run, just walk and just kind of enjoy nature.
Mr. Paul, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in 6th season, abstract poetry in 3rd season, and my book 101 review in 6th season as well, comedy 101 in 3rd season, and my food 101 is 6th season too, geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101, our 5th season, science 101, sex 101, 4th season, and my Baby Patches, Trivia 101, Law 101, Mental Health 101, Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and of course, Bible Verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Paul, having written this book of hard-won hope, what is the next frontier of learning of advocacy for you and your family? What does hope look like for you all now?
Yeah, I think hope really looks like just seeing what improvements we see over time, but not putting, I have my own definition of what I want to see. But I'm not going to put those requirements on my daughter. So it's really just seeing, how she improves or changes over time and embracing it, being thankful and loving her. Again, I have my own definition of what I would like to see, but it's really not in my control, and I'm okay with that. And that kind of gives me hope as well, knowing that a lot of this isn't in my control. So all I can do is love her and try to help her, and then celebrate the success that we see over time.
Celebrate the success indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Paul. So can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or whatever project that you're doing right now?
Yes.
So where do people buy your book, Mr.
Yeah.
Paul?
Thank you, Daniel. It is available on Amazon, both as a paperback and a Kindle version.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Paul Voss, because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering books like this will rise. So, Mr. Paul, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
More to come, people. See you soon.